Hi, welcome to the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race Daily Show. My name's Rupert Guinness, and with me here is Nick Douglas, well-known journalist and sailor herself, and also the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, Commodore Paul Billingham. Thanks for joining us for this first edition. The 74th edition of the Sydney to Hobart has already started, it's on its way. But before we're going to talk about what was a glorious, fantastic trademark start for the race, in late breaking news, we already have 2 retirements out of the starting fleet of 85. We're now down to 83. We've had Zen retire at 3:25 p.m. and then one of the big super maxis, one of the contenders for line honours, Scallywag, that withdrew at about 4:20 p.m. Paul, if maybe you can tell us a little bit about what's happened. I mean, one thing you can say, it goes to show that no matter the conditions, whether they're light or not, it goes to show there's no such thing as an easy Rolex Sydney Hobart.
That's right, Rupert. You can tell now the wind's picked up behind us. They're flying down the coast now. We're seeing Comanche getting high 20s of boat speed. From what I hear, Zen had a problem with its forestay and caused a problem with the rigging. They couldn't continue, so they've turned around. They're heading back to Sydney. Pretty disappointed group of people on there. And Scallywag seems to have some sort of significant failure with its bowsprit. And we saw Scallywag at the start was going really, really well, perhaps surprising a number of people with the changes they've made, but obviously it's all gone wrong, and I think they're heading back here as well.
Nick, you know the crew of Scallywag particularly. I mean, and your experience in sailing. What would the mood like be? Probably on both boats, to be fair. Obviously, so early in the race, but particularly with Scallywag, with so much sort of focus on their contention for line honours.
I think with any team that's put in this much preparation, and let's be fair, there were 85 starters today and they've all put in an immense amount of preparation. There's definitely a disappointment if you can't make the finish, and I mean, it's only day one, we're only a few hours in. I think Rupert mentioned a little bit earlier off air, they've still been out on the water since 11, so they're already tired, they've been in the sun, and you know, it's so much now what's feeling like wasted effort as opposed to something that's going to come to fruition. But I think that the Scallywags are pretty strong. They've had a lot of setbacks before. I'm sure they'll come back strong. And Zen is a very new program, that TP52. So a lot of people were wondering whether they'd be able to get on the water. So all credit to them for getting that boat on the water. And it's a real shame to see them out of the race.
Yeah, it certainly is a big shame to see both of those boats out of the race so early. One thing, though, we did see, which was on a positive side, an absolutely glorious start. Sydney, as you can still see, is in her finest. The sun beaming down on us, nearly 6 o'clock at night. And we had, great conditions for the start, 10 to 15 knot nor'easterly. It was a beautiful start. Paul, well, congratulations for being at the helm of the race.
Yep.
Tell us what there's always a lot of anticipation and build up to a start like today. We had the controversy of last year where we had Comanche and Wild Oats 11, that incident which saw Wild Oats 11 docked an hour when they finished in Hobart. But today they all got through safely, and it was a spectacular start.
Yeah, it was perhaps surprisingly so. I mean, the maxes were mainly on the eastern side of the line, and we thought, what's going to happen there? They were quite close to the spectator fleet for a lot of the start. Comanche got herself a little bit sandwiched in and had to sort of take the stern of most boats, but Blackjack was the real surprise packet. Came whistling up on the eastern side, and obviously first out the head. So bragging rights goes to Mark Bradford. And for that, which is a fantastic result.
It's quite interesting. Mark Bradford was sort of being quite calm and coy, not trying to over-talk his chances, wasn't he, before? Although, I guess we always know, never take someone's word when they're playing their chances down, Nick.
Oh, definitely. I think the Blackjack crew have put in everything that they could, and they led out of the heads last year, so, I mean, they're no stranger to that. I think they picked the right end of the line, though they were becalmed right at that boat end, but still stuck to their guns and stayed on that side and got into that eastern pressure out of Watson's Bay, and it paid off for them.
There was a bit of a split, wasn't there? If you notice, when we were getting just out past Camp Cove, the boats that were 50 metres away were footing right away down towards Middle Harbour, where the rest of the guys could keep the line. It really was a strange split. I've never seen that before.
I'm not sure what it is, whether it's because the breeze sort of hooks around South Head there and hugs the shore, I think, a little bit. So, but well played to Blackjack, and I think also Winning Appliances made some good gains out on that side as well, and they were 5th out of the heads as a 60-footer. That was just absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, Winning Appliances was so I think a lot of people were surprised, maybe not themselves, because I guess crews are confident in their own ability and their boat, but it goes to show, from the race for the handicap, for the Tattersall Cup, maybe a sign of how open this race is this year.
Oh, it's massively open. We were watching the rest of the fleet come through the 50s and 60s. They all struggled to get through that mark out of the harbour. But Winning Appliances, yes, some great sailors on there. You know, Far 40 World Champion, you've got the Winning family themselves. That really is a boat to be. And if you remember the big boat regatta, they surprised everybody with their start. I think they were third, Nick, weren't they, down to the first mark? Yes. Which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, third to the first mark, and then I think they won on IRC. So that was a good little start off for that program, and a lovely commemoration for them to basically be putting this program together in memorial of the 1998 Hobart.
This morning down here at the docks, Matt Allen, the owner and skipper of Ichiban, the defending champion, he was saying how he felt that the lead is going to change, or maybe the leads in all divisions are going to change numerous times over the next couple of days. Do you think that's going to happen?
Oh, I've been watching it, Rupert. I mean, when I left to come over here, Privateer was leading the US Raider. Yeah. Before that, Ichiban himself was leading the TP52. So yeah, it's suiting some of the boats that like the hard running at the moment. But as we know, it's going to die off. There's going to be a change of conditions, and who knows what's going to happen from there.
I've got to ask, now with Scallywag out, I guess that makes the number of international boats down to 10. Yes. Nick, what's your feel in an Australian race about the threat of foreign raiders?
I don't think it's a threat. I welcome, I think, and I mean, Paul more so than me should be welcoming people to this club because he's the Commodore and I know he does. I think it's fantastic that everybody comes to take part in the race, and I know that everybody out there wants to have a good one. So you want as many good competitors in it as possible, and I know that when people hear the sked and they hear that people have retired, they're going to be just as upset for them as they will be, all but, because everybody knows what it feels like to have to retire. Right. So it's not a good feeling. Nobody wants to do it, but it is a part of our sport. So we all have to learn how to move on as well.
As the evening starts to set in now, I guess a lot of the crews, both Paul and Nick, will be starting to sort of bunker down, plan their watches. They've got the hype of the start out of the way, the pre-race nerves, and now the serious stuff of maybe not just racing hard, they may be racing smart this year because of the lighter conditions expected.
Yeah, and we saw that already with some of the boats, whether they stayed inshore or went offshore. Comanche was pushing a lot further offshore than Blackjack, for example. They've just had the first sked, so that really is, as I understand it, the first time they say, well, okay, guys, we're into the race now, into our work. We're heading down past Wollongong, making good speed. I guess they'll be balancing the need to go faster, the need to look after the boat. As I say, we've seen a couple of retirements. That can be down to pushing the boat a little bit too hard, can be other reasons. So it's all about preserving the boat in these stronger winds, but also making every advantage you can while the winds are good.
Paul, as Commodore of the CYCA, do you sleep well at night when you're waiting to hear what's happened or not happened overnight?
I'm going to sleep a lot better tonight when I saw the forecast this morning. As soon as you get a forecast like that, all from the north, all running conditions, nothing nasty happening in the next couple of days. Big breathing sigh of relief. I mean, 3 or 4 years ago we had that night where we lost 30 odd boats on the first night, and we don't need another one of those in a hurry.
Well, Nick, we were talking about the conditions and talking about champagne sailing, just looking in your glass, in your hand there, I wasn't looking in your glass. The forecast.
It's a bit warm actually.
The conditions coming up, as Paul's talking about, favourable from that point of view. Are you? A lot of people are saying that the transitions are the most important part of this race here.
Absolutely. I think I spoke to 30 different boats in my interview show this morning, and everybody is just saying that the key to this race is going to be getting through those transitions. And it's funny because that is what is important in every element of sailing. But here, because the transition periods are going to be bigger in this race, they're going to be more critical. So when we see the nor'easter fade out tonight and early tomorrow morning, what happens is that the bigger boats slow down, the faster boats will stay in that breeze for a little bit longer, and we see this concertina effect, which will change the results significantly. So the bigger boats and your Ichibans and your privateers at the moment are just trying to get as much distance as they can between themselves and the smaller boats, and the bigger boats are trying to make sure that they get to the other side of this system and make it into the next one with enough gap so that the smaller boats aren't catching them up. So it really is a game of snakes and ladders for this race. Very different to the past 2 years. I've had a few journos ask me today, but isn't it normal that they go really fast the whole race? No, that's what we've had the past 2 races, and that's been a record-breaking scenario for 2 years in a row, which is just unheard of. This is more like a normal sort of race, apart from the fact that the southerly stream is not absolutely locked in. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
I guess ominously, from a sailor's point of view, there's the forecast of some long waits at the Derwent, which I guess is every crewman's or person's nightmare, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, even in Bass Strait, the concertina effect could be happening as early as there, and then the Derwent. So we may even see 2 big transition zones, and maybe, Paul,
That's right. You're looking at the Bureau's report this morning, a big white bubble over the northern part of Tasmania into Bass Strait. That's nasty. It'll push people offshore. Didn't look so bad out there. Then, of course, they come around the corner into the Derwent, and we know what that can be like, especially of an evening. Anybody arriving there after 9 or 10 o'clock at night is not going to be very happy for the next couple of nights. So the timing is just so important.
Obviously tomorrow, the 27th, is when there will be the commemoration in memory of the people who lost 6 lives that were lost at sea in 1998. If there are calmer conditions, I guess that can give crews a chance to sort of have some respite and think about a bit more, rather than if it was wild and harsher conditions, it may be hard. But there's going to be a radio communication sent out.
Yeah, that's right. So the sked tomorrow afternoon, David Kellett, who's the leader of the radio relay vessel. David was in the 1998 Hobart sailing on Sydney. They didn't make it as far as the storm. They pulled out before then with some damage. But he'll read out the words that the Commodore at the time read out at Constitution Dock in commemoration of those who lost their lives. Our view is that was the appropriate way to recognise and remember what happened. And the families have moved on. There's closure, but there's also remembrance.
Yeah. Nick, what do you feel about that? I mean, it's an emotional but respectful gesture that's been made. At the same time, we're all human beings, and it's not easy to think sometimes, but it's also good.
I think remembering it is definitely something that is very respectful of all those that lost their lives, and everyone that I've spoken today, from Sam Hunt, who was on the sort of Orion, to the Winning family, to Lindsay May, who was on Brindabella, who finished second in 1998 and then had to deal with, oh my gosh, what's happened when they got to the dock. There are so many stories that came out of the 1998 Sydney Hobart, but one really great story that comes out of it is that from that tragedy we've learned so much. Our sport has come so far, and we've managed to make it so that it's safer for everyone and we can enjoy it year after year. So as sad as it is to say that lives were lost, we've hopefully learned from that and can move on and move forward and keep going for many more years to come.
Yeah, Paul, what are your plans the next 24 hours? When can we see your face down in Hobart?
Well, I presume we'll do this program right down in Hobart. We'll see. Look, we'll see how we go overnight. It wouldn't be surprising to see 1 or 2 more boats retire with gear damage. It's just one of those things that happens when you're running hard for a long time. We then fly down to Hobart tomorrow morning. We'll get there by about lunchtime. The race committee are there already. The village is up and running, and we'll look to welcome the first boats in. But I don't think that'll be tomorrow. I think it'll be sometime early in the morning of the 28th, before lunchtime. I guess we'll find out in the next 12 hours whether that's a good prediction.
I know, I spoke to a few of the navigators today from the big boats because I wanted to get my bearings after last year's rush to get there in time. And all of them said, about 2 days, Nick. It'll be fine. About 2 days.
I've got to ask you one question that's been on my mind, particularly after last year's race record of, 1 day and 8 hours or whatever. Do you ever think that the 1 day mark can be beaten? It's a bit like the 2-hour marathon in athletics.
Absolutely it can. And if you just look at Comanche. Comanche holds the 24-hour record, which is virtually a Hobart in 24 hours, about 20 miles short. But next year we're expecting the first influx of foiling monohulls. While that happens, you've seen these boats in America's Cup. They're different, the sort of racing that we do. They've got to be stronger, more robust. But those boats can easily get down there in a day with the right conditions. It's just inevitable.
I think we never thought we'd be able to break 10 seconds for the 100 metres. And I tell you what, boats change a hell of a lot more than the human body. So, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, well, that's great. It sounds like it's going to be a fantastic, exciting and emotional few days to come, but that's what sport's about, and great events like the Rolex Sydney Hobart is one of those iconic events, not just in Australian sport, but international sport. We see that with the field of entrants, the crews, the 10 international boats, but I think there's a good number of international sailors out here. So stay tuned for the next days of this race, but thanks for joining us. On behalf of Nick Douglas and Paul Billingham, and myself, Rupert Guinness, I'd like to thank you for watching this first edition of Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race Daily Show. Stay tuned. You can log on to the website www.rolexsydneyhobart.com or hashtag Rolex Sydney Hobart. I can read it well. Thanks for joining us, and have a great night, and we hope all your Christmas was great, and stay tuned for tomorrow's show.